Chip would be pleased with the level of activism that seems to have been triggered. I don't want to say what it was triggered by. I think he would be pleased with that. He said that was one of the reasons why he wrote the book. And he said that it was important for progressive voices to move towards greater unity. And one of the biggest barriers to that was white supremacy. And I guess I want to end with this. The other night at our racial justice meeting, you mentioned that Chip had an affinity for Buddhism. And I know about this much about Buddhism, but I did look it up a little bit. And one of the things that I found was that one of the greatest principles, or one of the foundational principles of that belief system, is wisdom. And it comes from the cultivation of mental development. And so many people have spoken about Chip's mental development and what a giant he was in that area. And it says that when your mind is pure and calm, and that's the thing that I found about him. Never saw him raise his voice, never saw him upset, never saw him rushing around like some of the rest of us, that he had a calmness about him. I think he was comfortable in his own skin. And he understood who he was and his place in this movement. It says, when your mind is pure and calm, wisdom will emerge in practical terms. And it says that it comes at the end of practicing the path, which is another term for Buddhism. And I think that Chip achieved all of that. And I just wanted to point out that there are residents here from the underserved neighborhoods because they understood that Chip and Kim were united with us in our struggle. So thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Greetings. My name is Saladin Muhammad. I live in Rocky Mount. I met Chip 40 years ago, maybe 43 or 44 years ago. We were both active in the Philadelphia area, organizing, fighting, and training, and doing similar things. He was quiet then, and he was quiet until his last days. His comments were few, so I want my comments to be few as well. Comrade Brother Chip, a fighter for human rights and revolutionary change, will be greatly missed by members of Black Workers for Justice and many others in the struggle for a better world. Chip was a quiet giant. His presence was felt by his consistent work, humility, and confidence that through organization, collective study, and engagement in opposing injustice, that the oppressed and exploited people will manifest the will, the unity, and the power to make revolutionary change. Chip's strong stance against racism and white privilege was first applied to himself. One did not have to look hard to see or feel this quality that he had. We want to thank Comrade Chip for his lasting contributions. Thank you.
I was standing in the back, but I figured so that everyone wouldn't have to turn around. My name is Marcus Thompson. I work with Democracy and City, but I'm really a member of the Racial Justice Group, and that's a lot of. Well, the first time I met Chip, actually, we were in Greenville at this called Socialist Hour. Actually, remember those over at our friend's house. So it's one of these conversations where you get a bunch of people together, everyone's talking. You get a bunch of people who think they're smart, talking a whole lot, and about what they're going to do, revolutionary, that kind of thing. I remember the brother saying, and it can be very directionless conversation. I remember the first time I met Chip, because when Chip and Kim came there, they brought order immediately, almost like you needed. I remember we were talking about something, expensive, crazy, burn it down, whatever, and Chip took all the comments that had been made before him and condensed them all into about 2 sentences, and then presented an idea about what we should do about it. And I remember being like, whoever that guy is, I will follow him anyway. Like, I want to be a part of what that guy, because you could just see his mind. And of course, you know, I got a chance to meet his wife. His wife was there then, because Kim was the one that had us going around the circle. So this room, the way it looks, this is Chip and Kim. This is how they do things. And so a few things that you know, he was one of the few, and it's been commented on white people that were just as comfortable in spaces where nobody but black people. And he was just as home there as anywhere else. I mean, and because he wasn't acting like a black guy or anything like that, I mean, not to disparage you when he does that, but he knew, as Steve was just saying, he knew himself, he was comfortable with himself, and he was about using his privilege or whatever to better society. He was remarkable. Again, he brought order to disorder. He brought direction to passion. A lot of times we get all this back, but it's rudderless. But Chip could always break all that down and say, okay, but let's do this. And like you said, he was a man of few words, so when he spoke, you knew something needed to be said. And he always said what needed to be said at that moment. His timing was always impeccable. I had learned so much from this brother. Every day, just being in his presence was like a sermon, was like a instruction, a syllabus. He was truly one of the most remarkable people I've ever met. When other people were talking, Chip was thinking, and then he was doing. It's real easy to talk. Chip was a thinker. You could tell he had thought about things, and then he was ready to do something. He was not one of those guys that just talk forever. And one thing I admire about him, one of the most, is that he truly lived his values when it was easy to do and when it was hard. That brother lived his values, and he lived it in such a way that he caused the world around him to conform to his values instead of the other way around. That's a truly powerful person. Again, this circle that we're sitting in, that's because of Chip and Kim's values have been expressed into the outside world and been shown to us, and therefore we behave differently because of how they behave. Even as I talk about Chip, you'll see me talk about Chip and Kim interchangeably because that was that couple. It's like we all, you've seen us all doing that too. You talk about Chip, then you talk about Chip and Kim, because it's like they were so in unison that they were almost interchangeable. We truly have been blessed by that brother's presence. So one of the things I was thinking that I wanted to do is the fund that was started, because I think that should go on forever. I think we should make sure that every year that we do that fund and that we continue that in honor of my brother. I know the Racial Justice Group will continue on. His work will be done in his name forever, because that brother lived the life that we all are striving to live. And so I'm so hurt. I'm surprised I have not broken down. It's got to be God helping me right now. But his life was so powerful that I cannot wait to continue to cherish it with what I do with the rest of my life.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Angela Bryant, a friend and comrade of Kim and Chip's, and also a local elected official from those who are outside of town. I'm also the state senator for our community and serve in that role as well. And I want to add to the comments about the general and kindred spirit that Chip represented and that we have all enjoyed. And I liked what what you said about cherishing him well, because I think that will be important. He was also, as has been mentioned, a strong revolutionary, and when Sue called me, let me know he had passed, she said, we have lost a justice fighter, and we have lost a justice fighter. Whenever I put out a call about issues, you know, really difficult issues we needed to tackle, he and Kim were there. He was a great organizer. There wasn't a meeting that he couldn't come in and reorganize and straighten it out to have it going in the right direction. And we were kindred spirits in that we love facts and analysis. We never saw a fact sheet that we didn't like, either because we agreed with it or we were opposed to it. We were figuring out how to rebut it. And it was one of my favorite pieces of work with him was when we did the fact sheet to save the National Rocky Mountain Schools and to explain the National Rocky Mountain School merger. And everybody said it was too long. And Chip and I went, what? Everything you ever want to know about the merger of the National Rocky Mountain Schools is in this fact sheet. You don't understand that? We just couldn't understand why people didn't think it was a great thing. 4 pages long. I also like that he loved animals when my cats would decide they wanted to be in the meeting, because they were revolutionaries too. He would help me gather them up and scruff them and get them out of the way for the people who were allergic. And he personified what racial equity is. And often when I was with him, or even after I had been with him and I was reflecting on time with him, I would think to myself, now this is what racial equity is about. This is that real experience. And I love the healing part of overcoming my own oppression that he provided by bringing that spirit of racial equity to me in the moments that we were together. It will, I'm sure, extend my sustainability in the struggle as we go forward. And I think his spirit, I hope, will do that for many of us to keep up the fight that is ahead of us until we join him in the spirit realm, and hopefully our spirits will then keep the lineage going, as the brother over here from Fayetteville mentioned, in the days and times ahead. So I look forward to continuing support and reminiscence of the great spirit that is Chip Smith. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ajamu Delahunt. I'm a member of Black Works for Justice. And if I could just ask members of BWFJ just to stand so you can see us look around. He was important to us. Thank you. I also have a statement from Freedom Road Socialist Organization, and then when I finish, I promise it's not that long, I'd like to make just a few personal comments. Freedom Road Socialist Organization mourns the death of our comrade Chip Smith, one of our organization's founders. We extend deepest condolences to Kim, Nate, Nick, and all of Chip's family and friends. Chip was born into privilege, but dedicated his whole life to fighting oppression and injustice. He took a factory job so he could organize workers, became a steward in the Machinists Union, staffed for Jobs with Justice, and founded the Peace with Justice Coalition in Fayetteville. Coordinating the input of dozens of comrades, he was the main author and driving force behind the book, The Cost of Privilege, taking on a system of white supremacy and racism. Chip put his total commitment, integrity, and passion into whatever work he took on. Many of Chip's comrades around the country wish they could be here today, and we'd like to share a few of their remembrances. From Meju Louis in Hawaii, Chip's life practice was to place himself not where he could best get ahead for himself, but where he thought he could best contribute to social justice, and particularly to fighting racial oppression. He never let capitalist values define the meaning of success. He was brilliant, analytical, strategic, focused, but always humble and soft-spoken, and willing to just be one part of a collective effort. Working with him on The Cost of Privilege was a privilege for me. His dissection of the U.S. political economy, which is founded on white supremacy and which disempowers white workers and people of color alike, is something that will continue to inform and influence activists of today and those to come. That legacy will live on. From Ellie Leary in Florida, one of the most significant 4 years of my political and intellectual life was working closely with Chip on The Cost of Privilege. I will forever cherish those conversations, editing sessions, deep political discussions, and fun golf rounds. Save me a seat, comrade. Bill Fletcher, Washington, D.C. Chip was one of the smartest and most humble people I have known. And from Michelle Freud in California, I'm grateful to have been in an organization with Chip, to have worked with him and learned from his many, many years of work and commitment. Chip, we will miss your presence and what you brought to the world. Presente. Chip Smith, presente. Yeah, I was a comrade of Chip's and a dear friend, and just his influence, his discipline, is something that wore off on everybody else, only to be as disciplined as Chip. In doing what it is you say you're going to do, when you say you're going to do it, and all those kinds of things. His personal life, his martial arts practice, his Tai Chi, his meditation, all of these things were a model for me. And I consider him a big brother. He's just a few years older, but he was a big brother. And I think his courage, I think that Andrew kind of mentioned it, but just think about his courage, just showing up in Fayetteville at the start of the war, right? Just showing up, not from there. And you're in the battle of the beast in Fayetteville in terms of fighting against the military. And there he was in the middle of it. And people like Andrew and Roderick and the young sister, Kara, her husband was overseas in Iraq, and their family just put their arms around her and made her an activist today. She's an activist as a result of that. Lou Plummer and all these other people in Fayetteville. Very important. So I think that courage was really there. And I just want to say it's been a pleasure working with him and Kim. We love you, we love the family, and wherever you are, we'll be with you.
Hello, I apologize for my appearance. I hear from my mom. She's the president of the Benz Historical Society, and Chip was a member of the Benz Historical Society. He joined in 2016, and he was a supportive and active member. He was involved in the community activities and understood their purpose to recover, record, and promote the unique history of Edgecombe County as experienced by the members of his African American community. His walk in life showed that he opposed racism in all areas of life. His passion was justice for all people. Chip stood with the working class people and against the big corporate power. He was a peacemaker. I knew him for a short period of time, but he was a very gentle man, and I think the biggest thing I got from him was he was passionate about truth, and so that's why he had so many facets that he was into with racial justice and health care and poor people, because he was passionate about discovering the truth and making the truth what the present is. And so I encourage everyone to, that's when I'm in college now, they always say, find your passion. And so when you find your passion, to find what's true about your passion and to make that a reality. And I think that's what he did with us.
My name is Dolicia, and I was one of Chip caretakers. Never forget the first time we met. Sharon stated she brought me in, and I met his wife, Ms. Kim, and Mr. Chip. He had a funny side of him. When I first got here, I saw a dog and a cat. And I was like, okay. I love cats. And I said, what's your cat's name? He said, Monkey. I said, Monkey? He said, no, Monkey. I said, okay, Monkey. And I said, and your dog's name? He said, G. Who? She said, G. I said, G? He said, right. I said, okay. So I found out that even though I was a cat lover, I understood why. I used to wonder why I had 13 cats as a child growing up. And every time, my cat would run away, I would cry, and another cat would show up. I only seen one cat in that house. And the cat that I saw, Monkey, I've never seen a man so close to a cat. And I love the cat. I was trying to feed myself, Monkey. You gotta move now. I was trying to feed Mr. Chip. Monkey looked at me like, you don't live here. He would rub the cat. And he would just, it was just just something about him and that cat. But he would rub the cat, and the cat would just sit there and purr and purr and purr. So I guess one day the cat, he wasn't feeling too well. And the cat said, well, okay, you know, hey, she gets along with him, and, you know, she's not saying anything to me, like trying to push me out. Let me see how we're gonna do. And so the cat jumped up on me, and I was like, oh, okay. I can deal with that. I rubbed the cat, and I said, now, Mr. Chip is asleep now. I said, well, when he wakes up, I said, I want to fight this man over you. You know? I rubbed the cat, and Monkey and I were pretty close. You know? But Mr. Chip was a man that had a heart of gold. He couldn't help but love him. I mean, I'm going to miss him. I remember one time, Noah Jean and I were taking care of him. And there's this movie called Babs. And I thought about it. At the time, this kid would put some music on, you know, relaxing and everything. It happened to be Ray Charles. And that's when I found out that Mr. Chip was a favorite of Ray Charles. And the song came on, and I was on one side of the bed, and Noah Jean was on the other side. And Ray Charles came and said, I got a one, he's kissing me. And it was just going on. She was like, and Noah Jean said, he gives me money. Next thing you know, Mr. Chip had his hand on his leg, and he was just patting his head. I was like, this man knows that these two fools up there. All I'm saying is that I thank you, and I thank you, Sharon, you know, for bringing a man into my life, a woman into my life, and the two sons. You know, that's love. You don't want to see that kind of love in families. And Ms. Kim, my chair, said, we see her. We're just a phone call. But not a phone call, but you text a lot.
Hey, y'all, my name is Brian Prophet. I'm a bit of a crier, so we'll see how this goes. I wrote this the night that I found out about Chip's passing. My comrade Chip Smith exemplified the kind of humanity that makes the world a better place every day. He is gone now, and his life should be honored, so I'm contributing humbly here in the midst of all this in hopes that people who know all this about him will share all these great things that the rest of us didn't know. I met Chip when I was probably about 22. I was a little pup. By then, Chip had chosen a life of struggle in contrast to his relative privilege of his upbringing. He'd traveled the world. He'd left medical school. He'd become a rank-and-file worker, a machinist, and a deeply committed cadre. He married a fellow traveler, a comrade and friend who'd have his back, and who'd let him have hers for the better part of 5 decades. They'd struggled, and they'd stayed together. And if you don't know the story of Kim and Chip in the 70s and the brief period of separation and how they came back together, please ask him this story. It's one of my favorite stories in the world. They had children who he loved very much. He'd earned a PhD in economics. He'd organized and taught and fought and lost and won and done so much work to be happy and healthy amidst all the positive and hopeful, amidst all the chaos that the new Confederacy had brought since the Reagan era. And I was just this shit talking little white boy who was trying to change some things. But he mentored me. He befriended me. We talked about strategy. We talked about whiteness. We talked about pop culture. We talked about rape culture. Chip believed in me and my leadership, and he took me seriously. We took long car trips to demonstrations. We prepped a million things ahead of time. We debriefed a million things after. He cared about what I thought. He challenged me when he thought I was wrong, and I usually was. He understood the world so well, and he worked to understand me so well. He taught me so much. And he taught me humbly. This guy spent years researching and writing a book that would help people better understand white supremacy, white privilege, and how we all might get free. And in that writing, he read a million things and asked a million people to help him think through the challenging moments. And then he invited 1 million more of us to help him weigh in and help make the book better. It wasn't his book. It was a book for us. And that process exemplified his generosity. He was generous in so many ways. Andrew, you mentioned that they gave the most generous gift at your wedding. Mine too. But always humble, always humble. He loved people. He loved all kinds of people, and he knew that there was only one way that we were going to get free. We had to end racism. We had to join with people and build genuine relationships and fight. So he'd often be the one older white guy in the room, teaming with young people in the energy and spirit of black liberation or queer liberation or feminism or workers' power. And Chip was just Chip. He never put on a show. He never tried to be anything he wasn't or couldn't be. He just listened deeply. He would take his time. He would know when it was time to not talk, and he would know when it was time to talk. And he'd offer something helpful to the room. And anybody who'd been skeptical about the old white guy in the corner couldn't be anymore. He was quiet, but he had stories of adventure that would make your head spin. We once took a 12-hour trip to Detroit to a big conference, and there was a bunch of, young kind of folks. We thought we were hip, we were cool, we were doing things in the world, and we were playing this game of 2 truths and a lie, so people can put their, stories out there, and, we all thought we had these lives, right? And Chip didn't say anything. And then we had him go at the end. It was sort of like, oh, Chip, you want to go? And the 3 things this guy shared, I won't share any of them right here. But we all just who is this human? What is he doing? We thought we were doing things in the world, and it was like, nah, man, this guy. And we had, people really underestimated him because of how quiet he was. Another time, one of my other favorite stories about Chip is once my dog was in the middle of a fight with 3 other dogs. She wasn't a fighter, and she just kind of got dragged into this thing. And this 65-year-old man jumps in the middle of these 4 snarling people and is literally fighting dogs to save my dog. Right? He just didn't hesitate, just jumped right in. And he's fighting pit bulls with me. Right? That's who Chip was. Right? He practiced martial arts and meditation. He read prolifically, and he was always there. Always. Every single time Chip was there. For years, one of my favorite things in the world was the moment when Chip would laugh. He was a real serious cat, and he was often the kind of odd man out socially. But when he laughed, we knew we were in something together, because his laugh was so special. And it made me deeply happy every time. So thank you, Comrade Chip. Thank you for your love that you had for our people and belief that we deserve better. Thank you for your unending commitment to embodying the kind of good that made the world a healthier place every single day. Thank you for your commitment to the South and the centrality of black liberation, and for helping me understand both more deeply. Thank you for your mentorship, your friendship, your belief in me, and your laugh. Presente.
My name is Louis Turner. You all excuse me because I think you can, I'm going to try to talk loud enough for you to hear me. You see me around town in this motorized wheelchair. I had the choice between bringing the umbrella or my cane. I brought the umbrella. So I'm not going to walk up there, I might fall down. Don't need to say anything. I see Chip affected all of you all. That affected me. I'm trying to figure out what I could say all this week. And I thought about, what about legacy? Matter of fact, you even got the dictionary out, look up legacy. Make sure I was using it right. What I see what effect he had on all of us. And I have a plea. to each of you. Don't let his legacy die. Make sure you stand up for what he believed in and what he did. It's clear, there's no question that he had an effect on everybody's life that's here. Because I hear what you're saying. So what we have to do is carry Chip's legacy on.
Never know you talk that short.
I might stand right back here. Okay. I'm Susan Ayers, and I'm involved with T-Flag Rocky Mountain. In 2009, Chip showed up at the library one night when we were having a meeting, and he was sitting over in the corner. None of us knew him, and we went through a little round of who you are and why you're here. And Chip said, well, I'm not sure if you want me to be here or not. I'm here because I want to be here. I'm a socialist. And I said, whoa, to myself. And so we got to know Chip in such a wonderful way. He meant so much to us and had so much to give to us to help us move equality forward for our LGBT community and for other communities that we didn't realize we needed to be looking at. In addition to that, I was in a book club and studied the cost of privilege. I thought that I was a middle-class child of a railroad man. I lived on the wrong side of the tracks. I didn't realize that's what a white privileged person I was until I read this book and studied this book with a few others in this room. It taught me a lot. Sometimes Kim would get aggravated with me. But Chip always was calm, and as all of you have said, Chip was always calm, and he was always that gentle person that said, well, have you thought about this? So I appreciate it. We at T-Flag and me personally, we will miss Chip, and thank you, Kim, for all you've done to help us too.
Hi, my name is Neil Ashton.